Okay, I want to talk about the last two questions that were asked at Congresswoman Maxine Dexter's town hall in Gresham, Oregon today, May 31st. A young man stood up and said, "I'm stressed out." And Maxine said, "I'm stressed out too." He said he was losing funding at his job to help people reduce fire risk. These are the consequences of the Trump regime, cutting off funding for all of the things that kept us safer and gave us a better quality of life and more security. Trump is slashing all of that. He said, "I'm somebody who believes in government and taxation, and yet still there are these moments where I want my money back." That got loud cheers. I broke down having to pay my taxes this year because I know the horrible things that the Trump regime is going to do with that money. It is terrible to be stuck in a really broken, exploitive system and not be able to stop what is happening. He said, as a Jewish man, it's really hard to see more money being spent to blow the limbs off little kids than to care for our country or to make our lives better. I would also add to that watching innocent people be abducted and sent to torture prisons, watching little children who are American citizens be expelled from this country, watching Black women be used as human incubators. That's the kind of shit that's happening in America right now. I said this yesterday, but the New York Times has reported that more than 300,000 people have already died because of what Elon Musk has done to USAID. At this rate, by the end of the year, it will be over 1 million people who will have died from entirely preventable causes. They will have died from starvation, a lack of access to their TB or HIV meds, a lack of basic medical care, a lack of clean water. Also, Elon Musk could save the government $0. And So this gentleman asked, what could Maxine say to people to persuade them that the Democratic Party is where it's at? Why should they not go try to find solutions elsewhere? Maxine responded by saying, our government has failed us. She said it's failed our young people. Her kids are 18 and 21. And she said they don't think that government works at all. I hear that from a lot of Gen Z, from my kids' friends especially. She said we now have the worst income inequality we've ever had in this country. The 10 richest men in the United States, who were already worth tens if not hundreds of billions of dollars, they have earned $365 billion since Trump has taken office. Meanwhile, we are all struggling. Just a very few extremely wealthy men hoard the vast majority of the resources of this country. She said Trump and the Republicans are going to make it far worse because they're going to add $4.3 trillion to the debt if this reconciliation bill passes, and that Trump's chaotic behavior has resulted in a downgraded credit rating for our country. That means we are going to pay higher interest on our debt. She said she's working class, from a working class background. She was the first person in her family to go to college, and she believes in fiscal accountability and fiduciary responsibility. She said a lot of people in Congress are for government efficiency, not Elon Musk's version, but like actual accountability, actually making sure that we spend our resources wisely. Sometimes in a massive society of 340 plus million people, we have to pay for things that maybe we don't personally value. But that's far different than our money being spent on things that are actively harming us and vulnerable people. And that's entirely different than our tax money going straight into the pockets of a few extremely rich men. She said this country needs to stop deficit spending and start investing in working families. She couldn't address the why should we vote Democratic and not go for a third party, because she's not there to talk about political parties specifically, because she represents all Oregonians regardless of who they voted for. But she said we're stuck in a two-party system that is emboldened by a lack of oversight and lots of dark money. She said we need campaign finance reform. Now, that is one of her most consistent talking points at every event I have attended of hers, is that we need campaign finance reform. She also made a nod to ranked choice voting, and I said we have that in Portland. I love it. She said ranked choice voting or star voting or whatever you want to call it would allow for third-party candidates to be more viable, to have more of a chance to move up and be influential. I completely agree. There is a reason Republicans and Democrats don't want ranked choice voting. I really appreciated, she said, we should change the two-party system, but that is what we have right now. And that's something that I consistently talk about in my work, is that we can have this fantasy about what we want, but then there is the reality of what we have in front of us and what we actually have to deal with. Are we operating in the real world, or are we operating in our own ideals? And I am somebody who is extremely idealistic, but then when I go to act, I tend to be very pragmatic. because there's the kind of world that I want to build, and then there is the world that I have to deal with. There are the options that I wish were available to me, but then if I want to actually be effective, I have to work with the options that are in front of me and are truly accessible. The perfect political system does not exist. The one we have right now is extremely corrupt. The perfect candidate who aligns with all of my values will never exist, and so I've got to work with the candidates who are on the ballot. I very much appreciated Maxine's position that we need to invest in the working class and in families. That is a compelling message that can reach everybody. And it's something that's truthful too. This is an America that should be of, by, and for the people, not for mega corporations and not for the few billionaires up here, but for all of the rest of us. And that leads me into the last question from Maxine's town hall. A woman stood up and said, "It's really rewarding to be with other people who care when we are feeling lost and frustrated." I've said that before. Go join your local grassroots movement. Go connect with community. Go find people who can help feed you and help give you a measure of hope, right? Hope is catching. Hope is contagious. And when you are around other people who care about the things you care about, it helps keep you going. She asked about something that I repeatedly talk about because I cannot wrap my brain around it, which is Republicans in Congress. She said, your colleagues, meaning Republicans, have lost any sense of humanity. People are being disappeared off the streets. What is going on in your colleagues that allows them to be so hateful and allows them to vote for such cruel policies? She said, we are experiencing such pain. Why are Republicans voting for this? Where is their humanity? Congresswoman Dexter said, this is not the country that I wanted for my children or for my patients. This is not who we should aspire to be. We have to bring compassion back. We need a country where speaking out against your government is not going to get you disappeared, and that is what is happening right now. We are watching students who are here on visas be snatched off the streets for exercising their First Amendment rights, simply for criticizing the government. She said, I can't really explain why my Republican colleagues continue to be cowards. She gave an example of a freshman Republican congressman from Colorado who understands that the pendulum is going to swing back the other way and Democrats are likely to regain the majority soon. But he's also looking to the midterm elections and knows that he's going to be up for re-election. And he's been told if he strays from Trump's agenda, he'll get primaried by a hard right MAGA Republican and he'll get voted out. But if he's a moderate Democrat, is that really what's going to happen? His constituents elected him in the first place. Why would he think they want a hard right MAGA candidate? And also, fuck you. If you are so worried about your seat in Congress that you are willing to vote for the deaths of innocent people, you are willing to vote for the destruction of democracy, for Trump to absolutely obliterate the Constitution, destroy this country, and inflict suffering on hundreds of millions of people because you are worried that you will lose your seat in the midterms, fuck you. Okay, sorry I got worked up. I said that right after I quoted Maxine saying, we need to bring compassion back. I don't have compassion for Republicans in Congress. I have no compassion for Republicans in Congress. They are fascists. She did say we need 4 Republicans in the House to find their courage. We just need 4 of them to start voting against Trump, to join with the Democrats. She then said, we have a country with people living in completely alternative realities from each other. And I mentioned this before. She said she really thinks it's going to require us hitting rock bottom before people wake up. She said, take Nebraska, for example, right? People voted in elected officials who think like they do. They are MAGA. They voted for MAGA. But now we're watching Nebraska's dairy industry absolutely go belly up because they can't get any migrant workers. They voted to have all of their dairy industry workers kidnapped off the streets and sent to detention centers. She said she thinks it's going to have to hit rock bottom for those parts of the country before we can build back something better. She also said we cannot give up on this nation. We have to offer Americans a vision of a better future, compassion, economic security, food, shelter, healthcare, and human rights for all. Maxine said she doesn't believe that people are good or bad. She said that people are in pain and that Americans have lost their security. For the working class, there is no security and there is a lot of fear. She said some people's fear brings them to a place of compassion, and other people's fear brings them to a place of reflexive aggression. And the people who are susceptible to Trump and MAGA, their fear reaction is the latter. And she said, we have to speak to those people's fear, address their needs. And she reiterated, we cannot give up on this nation. And while I don't agree with everything Maxine says, I think she's right there. We cannot give up on us.